I mean, it's hard to explain, but I never faced anything in Afghanistan or in Iraq that was as significant as, what was happening in Mogadishu in terms of, it was literally fighting for your life for 18 hours. And I don't think anybody thought that they were going to live. It kind of hit that pinnacle of like, this is a life or death situation for an extended period of time. It was significant. Both of my best friends were killed, and witnessed that. And that was kind of the start point of like, this is real. This isn't a game.
Welcome back to another episode of the Zero Bunker. For some of you guys, this might be your first time here. Welcome. Zero Bunker is a safe space for you hard fucks out there. And we talk about shit that a lot of veterans and other skull fuckers out there are thinking that we just have YouTube and iTunes and stuff where we're just going to say it. But today, we've got some special guests on that I'm super excited about. G, you want to kind of introduce our guest, man?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, dude, can you believe we actually got fucking guests?
Dude, I can't. No, honestly, yeah.
Like somebody actually crawled out to our level, man, and they're like, you know what?
Low crawled.
Dude, seriously, man. All right, what's going on, guys? So, like CJ said, today we got some very special guests, man, and we want to go ahead and introduce Jay Bradford, Tyson, and Brandon. What's up, guys?
What's going on, man?
I'm all Jay.
Yeah, man, we want to, like you said, welcome you guys as our official first guests on this podcast. We're pumped to like get this thing going and really blow this thing up, and we think it's going to be a big hit, but we're still kind of in the beginning phases of it, and you guys coming on just is really badass. So I think we should dive right into it, man. I'm interested to understand a little bit more about each one of you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So kind of wanted to start with this, man. Maybe if you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick, man, maybe give us a little bit of your background, and we can just kind of dive right into it, man.
Sure thing. Hey, first of all, thanks for having us, and we're equally honored to be on, and appreciate you guys doing this for us too, and helping us get some more exposure. So thanks for that.
For sure, man. Yeah, well, hopefully it's a good amount of exposure. We'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then in terms of safe space, you guys like have any pets that we can cuddle or anything like that in the safe space?
No, not yet, man. Not yet. But we can provide that for you if that's something that you guys would like, man.
We just cuddle skulls.
Yeah, skulls. We got plenty of them, man.
You guys cuddle skulls, and I'm cuddling with some kitty cats. So.
Yeah, man. So where are you guys broadcasting from, man? I'm sure everybody's kind of curious, man.
All right, so this is Jay Bradford. I'm in Long Island, New York.
This is Tyson. I'm in North Carolina, in Raleigh.
Right on.
This is Brandon. I live in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay, right on, guys. So let's go ahead and dive right into it, man. So Jay, I want to start with you, my man. I know we had our conversations before, man, and so kind of take us into it. I mean, for those of you who are just jumping in on this, all three of them are veterans that had a very long career in their services. And thank you, by the way. We always, make a mission to thank all of our veterans.
All right.
And so, Jay, man, kind of kick us off here, man. I mean, you enlisted in the 90s. So why?
Well, it's a pretty long story, so I'm going to try and Reader's Digest it for you as fast as I can. But I grew up, my dad was a doctor, and he did some volunteer firefighting, fire captain. And so I grew up, almost all my childhood was like spent on the weekends in a firehouse. And I think seeing these guys and the camaraderie and interaction between them and nicknames and all that stuff, it drove me to really want to be a fireman. And then very early on, also started with music and piano, and was exposed to concerts and things like that. But I tried to join the fire department later on when I was in college, did some classical guitar major. and was told by the fire department, you're the wrong color and you're the wrong sex and we're not hiring. So it was kind of like plan B at that point. And I had, read a load of Vietnam Ranger type books, at 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I thought, well, fuck it, I'm going to do that. The music thing kind of petered out and it didn't go where I was hoping it would go. And anyway, went and saw the recruiter and told him I wanted to be in Delta Force.
Hey, it's too bad you didn't do the music thing later on, because you could just associate with whatever gender you wanted.
Exactly.
Well, he does now.
Can I get hired now?
Right on, man. So you got in, man, and reading from your bio, man. So you went through airborne and ranger school. So you're kind of making your way into what you wanted to become, right?
Yeah, I told the recruiter initially, and I actually originally joined in the Air Force because I had a buddy that told me at the end of basic training when he had joined, there were some guys that came around recruiting and they were PJs. And he was like, yeah, these dudes are badass. They jump in behind enemy lines and they rescue down pilots. And I was like, well, that sounds cool. So I went and saw the Air Force guy. The Air Force guy kind of gave me the runaround and they wouldn't give me any kind of contract. And really, I wanted something just to guarantee me the shot to try something. So I was leaving the Air Force recruiter one day. The Army guy pulled me aside and he was like, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I want to be in Delta Force. And he said, well, you can't do that. You got to be something first, like Special Forces. And I said, okay, well, I'll do that. And he said, well, you got to be something before that too, like a Ranger. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And he said, I can give you a Ranger contract. So that's kind of where it started. And, had the fortune of making it through basic training and not getting changed to mechanized, which is pretty much what the entire rest of my basic training battalion, anybody who didn't have a Ranger contract got changed to mechanized. It was during Desert Storm.
Okay, right on, man. So let me ask you something. So you went through Ranger school back in, I'm assuming 91, right? Correct?
You're coming in super broken, man.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you went to Ranger school in roughly about what, 1991?
I went, actually spent 7 phases in Ranger school. So I started in 91 and I finished in 92.
You just wanted to stick around, huh?
You're like the Van Wilder of freaking basic.
So you got to Ranger, man, and so you went to battalion, was it 375 or?
Yeah, so I went to B Company 375 in April of 91.
Okay. And so basically what did you, I'm a Marine, so I'm not really too familiar with, the whole Ranger structure, to be honest. I'm actually kind of curious myself. Like, so how does it work? Once you get your Ranger tab, you get assigned to the battalion, and then you just continue to do training, or you guys started working on like deployments, or how does that work essentially?
It actually works opposite of that. You go through airborne school, basic training for infantry is what I did, and then went to airborne school, and then you do 3 weeks of Ranger indoctrination program. And that was kind of like a pre-Ranger type of school where they teach you land navigation. They teach you a lot of the basic things that you're going to get into once you're a Ranger private assigned to one of the Ranger battalions. So you don't go to Ranger school until you've gotten to the Ranger battalion and you're kind of, selected to go among peers, who passed the PT test, who performs, who do they want to make a leader and kind of move up the chain. And there are so many people that quit and get washed out that, it kind of thins down. The pyramid starts, kind of right there. So I had the fortune of going to Ranger school very early on in my career in the Ranger battalion. And that's a requirement, to be a team leader, to be a squad leader, and move up through the rank structure. So Ranger school is separate from the Ranger battalion. Any infantry officer, other folks, Marine, whatever, can go to Ranger school. It's really like a leadership course. It's not something that teaches you Ranger skills. Okay,
that's changed. I didn't know that, so thanks for sharing that.
So gee, man, like, I mean, enough of this Army shit, man. Can we let's talk to the Marine on here, man. Like, what's the Brandon?
4-1, man. We got a 4-1 thing, man.
Oh man. Safe space. I want my safe space.
Yeah, so I had a kind of a similar path in that Brad did, I guess. So I grew up in Nebraska, small town, railroad town. And I knew, like, when I was a little kid, like everyone else that ever saw Top Gun or anything like that, I thought I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And then I found out you had to go to college first. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. So
G also, he was inspired by Top Gun. He wanted to play volleyball in little shorts.
That's so true, man.
That's the best part of that program, dude. That's like
no points for second place,
fighter
man.
Pilot. So I knew I played in a bunch of punk rock bands growing up that were doing okay, like locally, I guess, regionally, just throughout Nebraska and maybe Denver a little bit. And then similar to Brad, like, didn't get the lucky big breaks. I was like, I got to do something with my life, knowing that I was going to come back to music later. I basically was like, well, I'll go to the Marines. How can I fly without having to be an officer? And I was like, helicopter door gunner would be pretty badass. How do you do that? So I did a bunch of research and found out you had to be a crew chief, and I didn't know anything about maintenance, and you had to be a good swimmer. I grew up swimming, so that was fine. And so I went into the recruiter's office, and I was like, I want to be a crew chief. And so he locked me in under a contract and made it very clear that, like, if I didn't get second class swim qual in boot camp, that I was going to be asked out, and that there was a bunch of wickets you had to make through with like no second chances. So that all worked out, and I wound up getting my wings as a Huey crew chief and door gunner, and was out at Camp Pendleton, HMLA 775 first. And the thing about that, though, was when I showed up as a boot, they hadn't had any new guys in almost 2 years.
Wow.
So when me and the one other dude that I got my wings with walked into the hangar, like, no kidding, the entire flight line shop was standing there, like, hooting and hollering and drooling at the mouth, and not like in a way that made me excited.
Plus, he was in those little Top Gun shorts. So
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man.
With my aviators and it was a great squadron, but life really sucked for like the first year. My idea of, I'm a Marine now and I'm a crew chief, and like none of that mattered. It was all based off qualifications in there. So start at the bottom, work your way up. And then that unit is a reserve unit, but I was an active guy, and they had just got back from their last Iraq deployment. So I wasn't going to be able to go to war with those dudes. And that was one thing I wanted to do. So I kept trying to volunteer to go to 367 and 369, any of the line units that were the next up. And all the other dudes that outranked me kept getting those spots. And then eventually they were like, look, like, our squadron's getting shut down due to budget cuts. So you can either go to 303, the training squadron, and burn holes in the sky in California for the rest of your enlistment, or you can go to this thing called HMX-1, which is the presidential helicopter squadron. And I was like, all right, well, I don't really know what that is, but you get a security clearance out of it, and hanging out with the president sounds cool, so I guess I'll do that. So,
okay. Well, now, let's be honest, but now be real, man. Okay, you watched Full Metal Jacket, and you saw that one awesome scene about the door gunner just gunning down fucking VCs and gooks, right? Let's be real.
That's right, dude. Yeah, you just don't lead them as much. That's our mantra,
So you know what's funny? I want to interject something about that real quick. So I did a shirt one time and literally said, don't lead them so much. Had a Huey fucking helicopter with like a Reaper shooting a machine gun out. And it was just sort of like shits and giggles, man. A lot of people bought into it. And then I get an email about a month into it. And he's like, hey, man, I was actually the actor that did that scene. Can you hook me up with a shirt? Damn. I was like, fuck yeah, man. So I sent that out. Cool. So he's replying, and he's like, I was like, how'd you get that part, man? And he kind of went through the whole deal, dude. And that thing wasn't scripted. He just said, fuck it. And he just kind of let it out, man. And
that's awesome.
And I want to get this straight. So mowing down VCs led to holding the door open for Obama. Am I getting that
basically,
right?
yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
You guys were talking about Full Metal Jacket. I got to jump in here real quick. I was in Vegas. I think this was 2 years ago, and was hanging out with a crew of folks. And a buddy of mine is like, "Hey, I got a friend who needs a place just to like get cleaned up and changed. And then he's going to hang out with us tonight." And I was like, "All right, cool. Here's an extra room key. Go chill in my room. Totally fine." So I get done with whatever I'm doing, and I go back up to my room, and I walk in, and who's laying on my fucking couch but Animal Mother from Full Metal Jacket. And I look over, and I go, "What the fuck are you doing in my room, man?" And he stands up, and that cat's like 6'5". He is a huge guy, which you don't really get the his stature from the movie, because I guess a lot of those guys were big. But anyway, It was a surreal night, and he and I ended up, I don't know, drinking about $3,000 worth of wine, and had him reciting like every line from the movie at the top of his lungs in this,
That's amazing.
5-star restaurant.
That is
I'm sure he
gold,
loved you
man.
for that.
Well, I'm seeing a trend here. So far I'm seeing a trend of music and skull fucking. I mean, we're kind of like ballparking it here real quick. And Tyson, man, he's all quiet. He's probably scalping somebody as we speak. That's why he's being all quiet about it. So
He's busy over here.
He's gently
I don't do well with
stroking
idle
his,
hands.
he's gently stroking his ear necklace.
yeah.
among other things.
Oh, Brad, you know how to make me blush.
So Tyson, man, so my understanding is that you went to the U.S. Naval Academy and in '01, and so I'm just curious, what got you into that route? What got you into join?
Yeah, so I'll just back it off a little bit further, and like Brad and Brandon and really everybody else in this band, grew up really interested in music. Right, got my first guitar at like 10, and that was right around the time the grunge thing was happening. Found my way into a punk rock band, and we played together for a while. And in like the 7th grade, I kind of started raising hell a little bit, and my parents sent me to military school in the 8th grade. So at the same time, my older brother had been recruited to play football at the Naval Academy, and he left to go to the prep school. So there was like a shared moment there. And so I got to see him go through the process and be a college athlete. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And that place is, just really incredible and beautiful. And you go up there in the pomp and circumstance, I think it would make anybody want to check it out, at least for a minute. And, came back from school and kept playing music with my band and really decided, hey, I'm going to go to, NC State or something. We'll keep playing music. And then my drummer ended up getting diagnosed with cancer when we were like sophomores, and ultimately lost his life in November of my senior year of high school. And, that really kind of altered the course. And at the point where, we knew he was terminal, I was playing football in high school and was getting recruited by some schools, and Navy came and started knocking on my door and said, hey, we'd love for you to come play with us. So my senior year, kind of after Jody passed away, I finished my application process and, got an offer to go there. I got accepted, and then I also got asked to play football. And so that was really my path to get there. And it was cool because I got to spend some time with my brother, who then graduated and became an infantry officer in the Marines, right, I guess in the end of 2001. So I was a freshman and he was a delayed graduate senior, which is like a super rare thing up there. And, when 9/11 happened. So I spent the next 4 years playing football, but watching my brother and my teammates go, to OIF1 and OIF2 and, 3.1 and kind of all those crazy iterations that followed. And it was really just like a no-brainer, and kind of an interesting stat. I was actually asked, so I did what I call a victory lap. I have a BS in English, right? I'm not the best at math and science. So I say that I was such a good student, they asked me to stay for another semester. Not quite the case. I just had to make up some points, but I could have played football my second senior year, and I was just dead set on getting to the war. So, wow. And all my teammates, my senior year, I think 17 of the 22 guys that were playing were from my class, and I didn't want to play ball and watch them go to war. I was kind of fed up with it. And while I was a senior, we had 2 former teammates get killed. One in Al Khan, Ronnie Winchester, and then JP Blacksmith was killed in Phantom Fury. And, it just kind of hit home for us, and had a successful senior year, finished strong, won a bowl game, whole 9. And so that's what led me into the Marine Corps, got picked up to be an infantry officer, went down to 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines at Camp Lejeune as a rifle platoon commander, deployed as a rifle platoon commander and 81's platoon commander, and made my way over to MARSOC a little bit after that. So
right on. Wow. One thing that I wanted to say, I think it's very interesting. So for the guys that follow me on Zulu Fox and Zero Foxtrot, I focus a lot on the old school generation, World War II, World War I, Vietnam, and all of that. And there's always this notion that, for example, the World War II generation, we always call them the greatest generation, and they are, and rightfully so. But then when I hear, like you, Tyson, and Brad, it kind of reinforces the fact that you guys and everybody else that has served has done it. We are the greatest in our generation, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because we could have followed our dreams, but we decided to answer a higher calling. And some people just have this misconception that, Vietnam, they feel, everybody got drafted. And, if right now OEF and IF, we all did it for college money. And I think that's a complete lie. And I'm glad that you shared that because, again, it just reinforces the fact that, there's still that patriotism. We're still doing it for the right reasons. We're still, giving up, setting aside our own dreams to focus on, the bigger picture,
I'm going to be honest with you.
Sure.
I'm going to be honest with you guys that, I want to say all those things that G just said because it's super passionate, but I just always had this skull fetish. And so that's what led me to want, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I was going to actually say, I think everybody has their own reason, and you are case in point, my friend. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, and if I could jump in on that note real quick,
Yes.
that was so after I left the Marines in 2010, having never gone to war, and that kind of bummed me out. But I had a good opportunity to go tour with a couple metal bands. So I started touring with a band called Trumpet the Harlot, and then ended up getting hired to drum for Shadows Fall and a couple other bands, and did that for about 4 years, I guess. But something just didn't sit right, that I'd never been to war yet. And I was like, man, I spent all this time training to do it, and it's the one thing all my buddies always got to do, and I didn't do. And so I didn't feel like I really had done anything compared to all my peers. So that was a big reason that 4 years after living the dream, and in my opinion anyway, I left that to kind of get back in the fight, and then finally was able to get back in and do some stuff, because there was something missing there. So
sure. No,
I think
agree.
it's different too. I joined peacetime Army. I joined in November of '90. There was nothing going on. There weren't any big wars. One of the things that inspired me to join was the invasion of Panama, and seeing Rangers on TV parachuting into Rio Hato and a couple other airfields down in Panama. And when I got to the Ranger Battalion, it was maybe 14 months after the invasion of Panama, and these are guys that I looked up to, and still to this day look up to and respect an incredible amount, even though I've probably got 40 times the amount of combat experience that they had. I still look up to those guys. Those are the guys that mean probably the most to me, because it wasn't something that I was able to be a participant of.
One thing I wanted to ask you, since you're kind of on this topic real quick, which, so you're looking up to the Rangers that came before you, and even to this day, you look up to them. Do you guys feel, this is kind of open a question, man, but do you guys feel that, that the military, that maybe not right now, but when we all joined in our particular times, do you think that we were able to fulfill in the footsteps of the previous generation?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And, it's interesting because I was born in '69, right? So my early childhood, I still have memories of seeing, Vietnam footage and Vietnam on the news every night on the TV. And, my impression of Vietnam as a kid was always exactly that. It was, these are draftees. These are people, that had no choice. They had to go fight, and they were mostly poor and minority and everything else. And then started reading books about Rangers in Vietnam and SF and CIA in Vietnam. And it was wow, these are dudes that volunteered to go back multiple times. And that was something that always impressed me, was those cats are different than people that went and served. There's something different. It doesn't make them better. It doesn't make them, anything other than just different. But then to kind of be a part of that, and to volunteer to go back and go back and go back and go back and go back, that's something that I feel you have two things. You have timing and then you have opportunity, and both of those have to jive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure if I don't know if this is going to go lateral with the conversation or not, and G, shut me up if you want me to. But I'm curious to talking with you guys, something that G and I have gotten into that, as we've kind of matured over the years as combat veterans, I think that there's a phase where you kind of have this like. There's a lot of things that you learn and you evolve to you kind of appreciate through going through those experiences, and there's kind of a hardness and a toughness, and it's something that allows you to face things. But coming back into civilian world, there's also a part of that there's an adaptation that has to go a step further, where you have to be able to function in 2018 in the civilian world. And do you guys find any conflicts there as far as the mindset and the things that you learned, through your experiences as a combat veteran, and having to change your mindset at all? Because I think there's a lot of veterans that preach this whole hard fuck mentality, but I'm listening to you guys. You also have to humble yourself enough to be able to accept that, like, the world might not be able to accept us openly fucking skulls on every corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
I wouldn't. Go ahead.
Well, so I was just going to say, I mean, I got out, in the summer of, 16. So, I mean, I haven't even been out 2 full years yet. Right at a year and a half, I think. And so I'm like living that transition. And I think, recently in the last 6 months is when I've really found my balance. And I started by coaching high school football back in my old high school, right? I didn't really know what I was going to do. I got out kind of in a hurry. And so I'm sitting there with a bunch of teenagers, right? And putting them through a workout in a weight room, or out, on the practice field on the first day of full pads. And, my expectation is like, yeah, you're going to like finish every rep, and you're going to run through the line, and, it's going to suck, and you're not going to say anything about it. And quick reminder, that even, 16-year-old Tyson, 15-year-old Tyson was not doing those things, and it's through that experience. And that was like a huge reality check for me. Literally, like, packed my U-Haul, drove home on a Friday or Saturday. And on Monday, I'm like, getting in arguments with teenagers about, what it means to touch the line. And like that in and of itself totally blew my mind. And it really took me a long time to adjust to that. So, you take something as small as that, right? And then you translate it into the work environment, right? Just, your day-to-day profession, and sort of that professionalism that we as Marines hold high. I can't speak for the soldier in the group, but subtle.
Give him a break. He was considering the Air Force before.
Yeah,
That's true.
Hey,
so genteel.
Jay, I got to ask, man. Right, so you went into the Army, and you were getting ready to go into the Air Force. You switched over to the Army, dude. Do you ever regret about not having like AC hooches and good meals? And ever look back and say like, "Fuck"?
Yeah, like, the nicer golf course on base and everything else. No regrets for sure. I mean, like all of us can probably speak to this. It's like you're on the path that you're on, and those things happen for a reason, and ultimately it was just the course I was supposed to be on,
Absolutely. So I want to get into that. I want to quarterback real quick, man. So, because this is very interesting. This is probably the first time that I've actually, that I've been able to talk to somebody who's been to Somalia, and I know you have. Can you kind of walk us through that, man? Because I'm sure everybody's listening to this. We're all pretty curious about what it was like, man. I mean, you're there, Rangers, kind of walk us through it, man.
So interestingly, we did the train up. So we were on a JRX in Texas, and had gotten a word that there was stuff going on in Mogadishu. There was aid that was being sent, and the warlords were basically fighting over the aid and killing people. And we got the word that, like, the president said, if one other person gets killed, we're going to send somebody over there to, secure the whole thing and start this mission. And, we were all, yeah, that'll never happen, blah, blah, blah. And about a week later, we got the call and got sent to Fort Bragg to start a train up. And so we went to the Combat Applications Group facility, landed there in helicopters, and down the road comes all the team vans with all the guys from the unit in it. And the first guy that I see was a guy that I had gone to Ranger school with, who is also depicted in the movie as the guy who says, "This is my safety."
Oh, shit.
And so he and I went to Ranger school together and knew each other from there. And so I kind of, and because I had been to Ranger school and was a little bit, not senior, but, kind of had an in with those guys and being able to talk with them. But Mogadishu in itself, I mean, if there's one thing I'll say, it's more about all of the things that we did that weren't depicted in the movie or the book. Mm-hmm. And, there were a lot of other operations that were highly successful. Some of the first times, like VI and things like that have become TTPs later on. And, some of that stuff was kind of being utilized way back. And anyway, and then that day, those 2 days itself, I mean, it's hard to explain, but I never faced anything in Afghanistan or in Iraq that was as significant as, what was happening in Mogadishu in terms of, it was literally fighting for your life for 18 hours. And I don't think anybody thought that they were going to live. It kind of hit that pinnacle of like, this is a life or death situation for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. It was significant. Both of my best friends were killed, and witnessed that. And that was kind of the start point of like, this is real. This isn't a game.
Right. One thing I wanted to, so that's pretty interesting, man. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you this. So I think a lot of people that go through, you're talking about realism here, right? We're talking about war and combat and life and death, and it always, every person reaches that cross point where the realism hits, and you can take it, either way. Either it makes you stronger and you keep going forward, or you're saying, hey, you know what, this is it, and I can't do this anymore, right? So it sounds like to me like that. From there, did it give you like even more of the motivation, more of a reason to move forward and keep going? Am I correct?
Yeah, it was something that I guess I felt like afterwards, the majority of, so first of all, that whole thing happens and there were people, a ton of people that I never saw again. I never got to say goodbye to. I never got to go to their memorial service because we were still deployed when the memorial services were happening, et cetera. And, that's something that just dealing with that for the first time was unique in itself. And then getting back, there were guys, so out of 120 Rangers that were on the ground that day, maybe 120 Rangers, I think there were 77 Purple Hearts. And then, there were 6 Rangers killed in action. So the fighting force was significantly smaller than kind of what's depicted in the movie. Mm-hmm. And the guys that were moving around through the city trying to get to crash sites and everything else, it was a really small group of people. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of guys that we didn't see for 8 months later, a year later, because, Todd Blackburn, as an example, last time I saw him was getting him in the back, his body, he wasn't killed, but fell off the fast rope, which kind of like started the whole tailspin of the whole day. Mm-hmm. But the last I saw him was putting him in the back of a Humvee. Wow. So, and then, you don't see this person again for a year, 2 years. So that in itself was a big adjustment. Most of the guys that served over there in the Ranger capacity, those guys got out of the Army. And I think it was one of those things where they saw the wizard, and the wizard was fucking big and ugly and scary. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And not to take anything away from anybody, one of the things that helped me most was actually staying in and deploying again. It was almost therapeutic. Wow. In that, not every mission is going to be this fight to the death. It's different.
Wow. Okay. That's
I think the maybe all of us at some point have experienced this, and this also goes for the civilian life. But something that I'm increasingly interested in is the idea of just subjective perspective, and how no matter what we're going through or what the situation, that we do have the choice to absorb it and treat it a certain way. And I think what's unique about combat veterans is being in a scenario where, you know, and look, in no way did I ever experience anything close to what you're describing, but even going outside the wire in Fallujah, thinking, am I going to hit an IED every day? I had to come to some sort of positive peace with myself and like absorb that, you know what I mean? And I think that maybe all of us did. And do you find yourself like translating that kind of positive perspective, just, you know, because you have to find peace in getting shot at. I can't imagine like coming into the civilian world, it's like some stressful shit happens, you know, with your house. You gotta.
Yeah. For me, it was, I kind of made peace with knowing that I was going to die that day, and kind of every day since then has been a gift, right? Because I'm alive, and I didn't think, you know, I would make it out. I kind of made my peace with, I hoped that as I was dying, I could look up. It was a beautiful day, and was just hoping that I could look up and look at the blue sky, you know, as I was fading away. That was kind of my peace. And I also, you know, kind of got to the point of, all right, if I get shot in the arm or the leg, I'm going to be okay. And if I got shot anywhere else, I'm not even going to know it, you know? So that was kind of what I did to myself to kind of make it something that I could just function, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think that was the only thing I was ever worried about in combat, was like not necessarily dying, but losing an appendage, because everything I like to do, drums, workout, involves needing my arms and legs. So sure. I can't describe the amount of respect I have for people that have lost, you know, 1, 2, 3, or 4 of their appendages and like carry on in life and do great things. Because I honestly don't know if I could do that. That was the only thing I was ever worried about, was losing an arm or a leg.
So let me ask you this real quick. So it's interesting you're saying that. So what do you think defines courage? Like, what is your guys' definition of actual courage?
I
know it's
Tyson.
tough.
Tyson, you have a naval.
I figured
Tyson
the officer would step up and answer this one, like textbook.
Well, you know, I guess I'm entitled to an opinion here. I think. Shoot, man, it's so hard. But I think really, like, to me, what defines courage and what defines heroes, and I think we have all seen this, right? The guys that do the thing that has to be done when it's the hardest thing to do, and they just do it, right? There's no pause, there's no hesitation, there's a gap in the line, there's a wounded buddy out in an open field, and he's like, you suppress, and he's gone before you even get the chance to, like, you know, check your sector, right? I mean, he's doing it, and that's really, to me, you know, throughout life, it's defined by that moment of sort of zero hesitation, and knowing, like, if I don't do this one thing, like, that person's going to die, this person's going to suffer, this unit's going to fail, you know, the business is going to crumble, the team's going to lose, you know, you name it, right? And so in like a more universal perspective, I think that's really, to me, what defines courage.
How do you, if you don't mind me asking, how do you, because you know, and I know I seem to be the one that keeps doing this, but I'm trying to parallel the civilian world with that concept. One of the interesting things and kind of the evolution of what I feel like my mindset was, I found a lot of the same courage that you're describing, I think, in the service, at wartime, but coming home and then being able to realize that my wife or my friend is courageous in their own ways here in the civilian world, that maybe is different. You know, it's a little less hard than what we're used to, but you know, her talking calmly to me when I'm upset, or my friend helping me move or whatever. And I feel like there's a lot of guys out there listening that are in the civilian world, and there's sometimes a disconnect, you know what I mean, or a respect for what courage is, because it's so subjective and wide.
Yeah, I think the best thing on that note that I've seen for people that both have and have not served, in regards to courage in the civilian world, is just, for me, in my opinion, is just the refusal to quit. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If it's some crappy job, you know, where you're scrubbing dishes, or you're going through college, or you know, whatever, you have family issues, whatever it is, just the ability to push forward no matter how bad things suck, and have a goal and an objective, and to keep moving forward at that, no matter what the speed. That refusal to quit, I think, is courage that I've seen both on and off the battlefield, that I'll respect somebody out in the civilian world just as much that's never been to combat, if they have that mindset where they're like, you know what, like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to succeed at X, whatever that is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of you guys mentioned earlier, right? It's subjective, and it really is, because my battles, based on where I've been, are wildly different than my next door neighbors, right? Who may or may not have ever spent a day in combat. But her losing her dog, for example. I mean, I don't know that she even has a dog, but that could be the most catastrophic thing that happens in her life, right? And the first question I have to ask myself is, who the hell am I to say, to diminish that, right?
Absolutely.
Like, who am I to take that from that person, right? And that's one thing that I think is important, right? I mean, we can't sit on a pedestal as veterans of combat, who volunteered to be there, and look down at the world, right? We don't do that, because the second we do that, we're fighting an uphill battle every day for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
We chose to do something. We chose to put ourselves in a situation that, frankly, I wouldn't want the rest of the world to go do it. I wouldn't want other members of my family or some of my friends to have gone and done the things that I did. Because a lot of it was hard and a lot of it sucked. And at the end of the day, right, that's like mine to bear. But it made me who I am. And I'm happy to sort of relate those experiences in other ways. But, you can't look at somebody and think, well, whatever they're going through can't be, you're not in a gunfight, you're not going to die. Like that, that's ridiculous.
Sure.
It's, you've got to recognize that every day somebody's going through like probably the hardest moment of their day or the hardest moment of their week, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's respecting that emotional condition, right? That they're at that point and that they're going to grind through it and they're going to figure a way out of it. I think that's,
I don't know
important.
if you guys have experienced this, or people listening right now have experienced this, but I can tell from firsthand experience that that was a huge struggle of mine. And I feel like, I mean, I've been out of the service for a while, and I feel like it wasn't until this last year to year and a half that I started, dropping my guard enough, because I always had this like, oh, this is some first world problem bullshit, you know what I mean? Or like, you guys are complaining about some, something relatively stupid. And I'm trying to, parallel my experiences to that. And I had to be able to come to a harsh reality with that. And so, if anybody else is out there listening, man, you're hearing from some of the hardest motherfuckers out there saying that, the neighbor's dog dying is just as serious.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's all perspective, and Tyson mentioned it. I mentioned the same thing in another interview that we did. Just because it was my path to be a soldier doesn't mean that, I have the right to judge somebody who doesn't take that path. And, I've seen people that have fought illness, all kinds of different angles where people are struggling, or it might be addiction, right? Like that's a struggle in and itself. And those people can be in hell, for years and years and years of their life before they figure out, how to get themselves out of the hole that they're in.
Sure.
So, for me to say, well, I lived some hard days in combat and lost a ton of friends and teammates and everything else, and talk down about somebody else's service, or for that matter, and this is one of my kind of pet peeves, it takes all kinds of people in the service to be successful, right? Like as a Delta Force operator, like I require all of these support people to help me do my job my best. And, I have never looked down upon support people. They're all a part of the team. I wouldn't talk down to them. I don't think less of them because they didn't choose to be something else. It's everybody for the team effort and for the team win,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one thing I was lucky. Like, I started out as an air winger, and I didn't get involved in the ground side of stuff until later on in life. But having seen both sides of that, I was pretty fortunate to be able to see like how hard people work in the wing, for example, or in motor T or whatever. Like I got exposed to all that because that was my life for the first 5.5 years before I got involved with anything else. And so, and we had a couple people that, were grunts or recon or whatever, and that lat moved over to the wing thinking that, they're going to be swinging with the wings, it's going to be easy, and then they find themselves working 16, 17 hours, 7 days a week, getting shit on because they don't have the right qualification and rank doesn't matter there. And it's a reality check for them. They're like, oh shoot, man, like this machine is much bigger than just, shooting stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, man. I mean, again, it's when people get hit with a dose of reality, that's when you see the true nature of the person, and it kind of puts you in that spot where, like, what are you gonna do, right? How are you gonna handle this? What's your next step, and I think it's super important that, and I agree about the support. I mean, every time I got to take a piss, CJ's got to hold my nutsack, and I couldn't do that without him.
True story. all homo.
Yeah, we just got this weird love, man.
Well, hey, can we talk about the band a little bit, man?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I want to hear about the music.
Yeah, so before we get into that real quick, how did you guys even link up, dude? Okay, was it the skull fucking, or was it the music, or was it both?
What's the gay version of Tinder? What is it? Was it Grindr?
Yeah. It was Craigslist. We were going old school.
Yeah, the misconnections, man.
Yeah. So the way it all started, really, and I'll kind of break it down a little bit further than just how did we meet. For years, I've been retired for 7 years now, and have always struggled with figuring out how to get, and this is the bigger picture of the whole music project, the band, and separating from the military. It's finding that sense of purpose, and to be serving at an elite level, and then to walk out the door and you lose your identity, you lose everything. You're not the person that you sacrificed to be for 20 years or 2 years or 6 months. And for me, it was trying to figure out how to best find this purpose. And so I would be out with my wife every Friday night. We do like a date night. We go out and we have a couple of drinks and we have a nice dinner. And, every week she and I would cook up a different thing. Like, maybe you should do this, maybe this. And I always said, I'm like a boat out on the ocean, and I'm just looking for the spotlight. Like, just show me where to go, show me what to do, I'll do it. And one day we're in the house, and she looks in. I've got one room it's basically music room, guitars and amps and all kinds of shit. And she says, it's a shame that you're not doing anything with this stuff, and you should do something. And I'm driving to work the next day, and I thought, that's exactly it. It's like I can find purpose through music that I love and have a passion for. And if I do this the right way, we can set something up so that we're contributing back to the community that we came from. So anyway, that's kind of like where it started.
So it led you to your first song, I'm a Boat on the Ocean?
Yeah. With the spotlight. Yeah. So I hit up, within about 3-4 days, my buddy Jason Everman, who's now a part of the band and everything else, he was in town and we were going to see a concert together. And before the show, we were having some cocktails, and I said, "Listen, man, I've got this idea, and I want to know if you'd be a part of it. And I know that you left music a long time ago, and there were some things that were kind of unresolved with that. What do you think?" And he was like, "Man, I love it. I'm totally in."
Hey, Jay, wait. Let me back up for a second. You say Jason Everman from Nirvana, right? I mean, that's the guy that we're talking about here.
So he played guitar for Nirvana, and then played bass for Soundgarden on their first tour, and then ultimately ended up in another band called Mindfunk, and then kind of quit the music scene altogether and joined the Army and became a Ranger.
Shit. Now, is that hardcore or what? He's like, you know what, man? I need to go slay some fucking bodies, man. Fuck this.
It's like Nirvana and Soundgarden aren't enough for me. I need to kill some motherfuckers now.
So what was it like meeting? What was it like to meet him, man? I mean, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but was he kind of like a big influence into your music and into what you guys are doing right now, or?
No, to be honest, no. I've known him for as long as I've been retired. Mm-hmm. And we met in the city in New York and hung out and hit it off. But to be honest, I knew of him the second he stepped foot into the Ranger Regiment, because I was a guitarist, guitar player, did the music thing, and everybody knew that. And when he showed up, like literally word spread like wildfire, like, there's a kid in 2nd Ranger Battalion that used to be in Nirvana and Soundgarden. I was like, what? I got to meet this guy. So we never crossed paths while we were serving together. But once we met afterwards, we hit it off. And he's my favorite American, my favorite person in the world, aside from, my family and children and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Right on, man. So walk us into like how did you guys meet, man? Because I'm so curious, because one thing, I come from a background with a lot of music. In fact, music actually kind of kept me sane through the whole times that I was deployed and going through my shit. And I think
I was just thinking that y'all are all like emo kids together, kind of,
I'll let Tyson go into kind of the details of how it started to organically grow from once Jason and I had kind of made a commitment to stand this thing up.
Yeah. So I was, I'd just gotten out of the Marines, and, a couple buddies from 2nd MSOB were, we were all kind of keeping in touch, and a guy I had deployed with kept sending me Brad's posts from Instagram, right? So this is, last spring, I guess. And I was doing some work with the MARSOC Foundation at the time, and as I kept seeing his posts, I was like, all right, well, this seems pretty rad. So like, I'm just going to keep following it. And one day I just said, I'm just going to send this guy a message. So I sent Brad a message and was like, hey, this is my story, music, football, Marine Corps, MARSOC, blah, blah, blah. And really just looking to see if I could somehow tie, the MARSOC Foundation into whatever he was doing. And, at the end of this, like, very long rambling, sort of like classic Tyson response to something, Brad just says, well, like, what do you play? And I said, well, I'd say I'm a bassist. And he said, is that something you'd want to do? And, I have this like fanboy moment where I'm like, am I getting asked to play in this band? Like, yes, the answer is yes. Like right away, like I'm going to say yes to this.
And then he instantly got on YouTube to figure out how to play the bass.
My favorite part about that joke is like everyone else laughs because it's the first time they've heard it. I've heard it like 50 fucking times. It's brutal at this point, but it's also true. So, but yeah, so that's really how like Brad and I got linked up, and then I'll kind of turn it over to Brandon to tell his part.
Yeah, I don't remember the details of how I came across Brad's Instagram, and I don't even really remember how we started communicating. I know it was through direct message on Instagram, but I don't remember if I hit him up or if he hit me up. But we ended up communicating, and I remember saying something along the lines of like, hey, like, if you've got something going on musically, I'd be interested in if you don't have a drummer in getting involved in that. And then we set up like a FaceTime call where we could kind of talk through what he was doing. And once he explained it to me, like just the ability to get together under a common cause with a bunch of guys that have experienced a lot of the same things to give back to the communities that we came from, I was instantly sold. And I was like, yeah, dude, like I can play whatever you need. And it just kind of rolled from there.
So for everybody that's listening, what is the group called?
It's Silence and Light.
Okay.
And that's kind of meant to speak to, well, first of all, to provoke a little bit of thought, but it's kind of meant to speak of the solitude and isolation that you feel when you're deployed, and just kind of, being out there alone and compartmentalized and everything else. And also the hope, that's there too, at the light that's at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right on, man. That's super noble. So now from my understanding, you guys got an album dropping this year. Am I right?
Yeah. So yeah, the whole goal, and again, to talk about kind of like the organic growth, the number of people that have hit me up on social media and said, hey, how can I help? I'm an accountant. What can I do? Mm-hmm. All the way to, probably our biggest news is that we have a major producer from the music business that reached out and said, hey, I'm willing to contribute my time, energy, and resources to helping you guys out and making this recording and making it the best it can be. And his name's Josh Goodwin, Gudwin, but mm-hmm. you can Google his discography. It's insane. Anybody from Maroon 5 to Justin Bieber to Jessica Simpson, Cher, Celine Dion. I mean, this guy is a huge player and a genius with songwriting. So
Wow.
we're absolutely over the moon to be working with Josh. So anyway, we're right now kind of in the pre-production where we're dialing in all the music and getting everything completed and written and everything else. We record that stuff and then we kind of pass it to Josh and let him kind of make suggestions. And then ultimately July, probably beginning of July, mid-July, we'll go into the studio in LA and record with him, and then it'll drop from there.
Right on, man. That's like I said. I mean, I think it's tremendously awesome to see veterans come together after all the experiences, after everything that that you guys just shared. And even though that's just a small glimpse, I mean, we could sit here and talk hours because there's like this pool of wisdom and lessons that we all learned that, I mean, like CJ said before, a lot of guys that are probably listening to this, they're either going through their own issues, going through some problems, and it's good to see the positive example. And it's also very, it's also a very creative way that you guys are doing it through music. You guys are using that passion to communicate that and to give back to the community. So my hat's off to you guys for this, man.
Well, that's something that, again, it's when I play the guitar, I'm in my own world and nothing interferes with me. It's just complete solitude and joy. It's like heavenly. And, to be able to take all of the negative things and emotions and thoughts and sights and sounds and things that you can't ever get out of your head, and to be able to put that into music and do something positive and creative that ultimately is serving this bigger purpose. And, that's the intent behind it, along of which, what we're saying is that all of our music sales proceeds will go to 2 different charitable organizations that serve not only the veterans community, but first responders and other folks. So my portion of the proceeds will go to Warrior's Heart. And that's something that a buddy of mine, Tom Spooner, former unit member also, he's a, co-founder of that. But they do amazing things for, again, first responders, veterans. It's a physical place in Texas that people can go and get help. But ultimately we want to lead the example and say, look, we've been through the dark days. We've been through the bad stuff. And if we can do it, you can do it too, no matter what. Don't quit, don't give up, and don't do something, like take your own life. There's just absolutely no place for that. And reach out in whatever way you can. Tell somebody you need help.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. So I just kind of want to wrap this up real quick with, guys, go ahead and throw your handles out there.
Wait, GG.
What's up?
I have one comment and one question.
Uh-oh.
Okay, one comment I was going to say, if Jay ever needs just a side gig, I think he could do a voice double for Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I don't either.
And then my question goes to Brandon. All right, honest answer. Who was the better president to work for?
Okay, no, I'll rephrase it. Who did you want to push off the helicopter?
No comment. No, to be completely honest, you quit caring about politics a lot when you work there because you kind of have to. The Bush family was awesome because they took really, really good care of us. Like we used to go to Camp David a lot, and if you were up there over Christmas or anywhere that he was, we were, even if we weren't flying him, we were just, we were always around. So if there was Christmas or whatever, they would invite you to watch a movie in the family movie theater there at the Shangri-La Lodge on Camp David.
Badass. And
really took an interest in just, if he saw you, just sit and chat you up or whatever. And the Obama family, regardless what you think about them politically, were also they were just good people to us. And his kids, this is going to sound kind of weird, but his kids were super well behaved, which is really rare in those circles. Right. One time I was walking out of the lodge and one of them had a birthday party going on. So there's, 30 freaking kids running around all over the place. And I held the door open for them as they ran in. And then I started walking back down the road and, his daughter, I can't remember which one at this point, ran out and chased me down the road a little bit and was like, "Hey, thanks for holding the door open, by the way. You didn't have to do that." And, obviously in my mind, I kind of do. You're the president's daughter. But
wow.
But the fact
That's
that
awesome.
she chased me down just to say thank you was cool because you don't get that a lot in those kinds of circles.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's, wow. I mean, yeah, that's actually the first time I actually spoken to somebody who has worked into the to the helicopter with the president and all that, man. I think I'd be nervous as shit. I was just never seen fucking, anything harder than a sergeant around me, man.
Dude, when I was in the DEP program, getting ready to go to basic, and sometimes we have those get-togethers or whatever, and they would like do PT shit or whatever. But one time in Waco, Texas, Marine One was there, and I got to actually like see the helicopter. Well, I guess there's multiples though, right? Like, am I right about that?
Yeah. There's not just one. You usually
so I might not have got saw the real
several.
one.
No, you probably did. There's not really like one dedicated only helicopter that he flies in, because there's usually the Secret Service and everyone else. So it's a fleet.
It's like the entire entourage, man.
Got it.
But,
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, guys. Well, shit, man. I guess we can go ahead and wrap this up real quick. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to, throw your handles out there. Where can we find, the band, and, kind of give some general info so everybody can go check everybody out, man.
So depending on when this posts, I'm in the process of switching over kind of like my personal Instagram account to a band account, and that'll be Silence and Light Music. Mm-hmm. Or for right now, it's the letter J, Bradford _official. So it'll probably, by the time this posts, it'll probably be Silence and Light Music. We've got a website that's under construction too, silenceandlightmusic.com. And that'll be standing up. We're trying to kind of time everything, the infrastructure and how you get paid and how you accept royalties and how we then push that to these charitable organizations. We're kind of like standing all of that stuff up at the same time. It's not just writing music. There's a business side of this too. So, and probably some merchandise to come and things like that. So it's either Silence and Light Music at Instagram, or it's, silenceandlightmusic.com.
Okay, right. Yeah, we'll make sure to have all the links down there. And I know this is, a lot of people are probably going to ask me this, but how can people donate to the band, to your cause?
Yeah, they can donate by buying a song. So
Perfect.
That's the best way to do it. Basically, when you sell a song on iTunes, just to kind of educate everybody real quick, a 99-cent song, iTunes takes 30 cents of that. Mm-hmm. And then whatever aggregator you're using, like BMI or ASCAP or whomever is going to like actually collect the royalties for you and distribute them, mm-hmm. they take 7%. So what you're left with is about 63 cents for a song. So we're hoping to take, as many songs as we can sell, as many albums as we can sell, and contribute that to, again, warriorsheart.org. That's a great cause and a great facility, and I'll let Tyson
I feel like we
talk
need to
about.
cue the sad music, like for 5 cents a day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'll chime in on the second org, which is the Marine Raider Foundation. Obviously, mm-hmm. the MARSOC community is near and dear to my heart, and I had the opportunity to do some work with the Raider Foundation right after I got out, and saw a lot of the support that they provided directly to families, and they work hand in hand with the SOCOM Care Coalition, which is a huge mechanism for taking care of those guys and their families, both 100% healthy and in transition, or at the times when their families need them the most, in tragedy. So I was working with them when the C-130 crashed last summer, and saw firsthand how responsive a very lean nonprofit organization like that can be to help those families, and just be in a small community and what it is. And you can check them out at marineraiderfoundation.org.
Awesome, guys. I think we can go ahead and wrap this up, man. I mean, this was an awesome episode. We're so glad to have you guys on here. It's been, like I said, a truly humbling experience. And for those of you that are listening, we're gonna have a lot more guests. You're gonna have a lot more of the quality shit that you expect from the Zero Bunker.
Yeah, that's it, guys. If you are watching on YouTube, please do me a huge favor and subscribe. Down below, we're going to have all the links to all of these guys' contact information. You can check that out. Also, if you want to get a hold of G, it is G4P69@gmail.com.
Don't do that.
Hey, thanks again, guys. We appreciate y'all. And everybody out there watching, thank y'all.
Yep.
Yeah, no, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.